welcome back to the basement. So I've got a quick and fun little project I'm going to be doing tonight, and I thought you might want to tag along. I found recently this Craftsman Breaker Bar. It looks like it's brand new. I found it at a thrift store, paid $4.95 for it. And I already have several breaker bars bigger than this. Probably a Harbor Freight brand, but you know, a Harbor Freight breaker bar does the job unless you put a 15-foot cheater on it, and if I'm going to do that, I'll go to the 3/4 drive. So this is a handy enough tool, but I don't really need it as a breaker bar. But one of my favorite tools of all time, something I got when I was in high school, is a flex head ratchet. A flex head ratchet, of course, as you're working, the handle can be flexed up out of the way. And in fact, the one that I got in high school was the Craftsman brand of this style of handle. And with the Craftsman style, not only can you flex it up, but because this piece is square, you can actually put a crescent wrench on here and use it as an offset wrench, like a crow's foot wrench kind of an effect. So I would love to have a 1/2-inch drive, flex head Craftsman ratchet. So my plan is to remove the regular 1/2-inch drive bit here that makes it a breaker bar, and take this Craftsman ratchet, which works fine, but which is kind of superfluous to my needs. I have several smaller 1/2-inch ratchets. This one's not terribly useful as it is. And I'm going to modify this head to fit this opening and combine these two together to make a 1/2-inch drive flex head ratchet. Now I know what you're asking yourself. Rather than using this rounded kind of snap-on style Craftsman ratchet, why don't you use a Craftsman ratchet that's the same series, the same square forged style as this? Well, it's funny you should ask, because I happen to have one right here. This is one of my go-to ratchets that I reach for in the drawer all the time. But there's a problem. This ratchet is necking down to too thin of a section. Right here, it's only about 490 thick. And I really need it to be closer to 750 thick right here at the neck to get decent strength. This one that's round is actually not only round, but it's actually a little bit extra fat. And we can take advantage of that extra fatness and mill it out square to fit here, and it will actually be a pretty good, pretty clean fit. So rather than use the series that would make more sense, that has a little bit better of a chrome match, I'm going to have to use this one where the chrome doesn't match perfectly, but that will be a strong and usable tool. So that's the project. Let's get started. So the first thing is to develop a plan of attack. Now, to fit inside this joint, I need a shank that's like right at a 1/2 inch wide by about 750 in thickness. So looking at this here, 1/2 inch wide is not a problem. The question is the 750, and that's where, if we center our drilling close to this fattest part, so what we want to do is we want to just mill this down to a 1/2 inch width, but we want to keep it up as high towards this lever as we can get it, because we want the thickness up here of this head. If we flip this over, we see that we're not going to encroach on anything on this other side. The only thing we have to watch for at all is that the lever can still travel when we're done, and that certainly looks like it will. So we'll go for about that point right there. I can't tell you how excited I am that I can't seem to put my hands on my, what do you call the pliers that you remove a snap ring with? That I can't seem to lay my hands on my snap ring pliers. So we're going to do it the old school way. We're going to do it with a pair of needle nose pliers and a lot of frustration bordering on outright anger. This would be easier if I wasn't trying to do it for the camera, and in fact I may have to go off camera and do it where I can kind of concentrate on it. Yeah, I'll do this off camera and be right back. Yes, I had to hunch down over it and really push it. So this comes out here, and then this part is just going to slide right out. I think that this will just let go. No, it won't quite let go. Wonder what the trick is that makes that let go. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, why are we taking this apart? Well, because to do any work on this thing, we have to have something that is square that we can clamp up and work against. I'm going to be doing, the best guess method as far as where the center is, or as far as having it, perpendicular to the milling cutter. That's going to be best guess, and it'll be close enough. As it's more of a visual thing. As long as it's not physically cranked off to one side, it'll be fine. But for left and right, at least I can clamp this right up in the vise and work from it. All right, about to pass the point of no return. We better hope it works. All right, so off camera, I covered the back of it with a Sharpie and scribed a center line that I've used to align it in the vise. And then I scribed this line here and that line there. This is pretty close to where the notch ought to be, both in this direction and in the height. And then after I get this side done and flat, I will flip it over, and then from there I'll measure to get the thickness of it just right. This distance here is just a seat of the pants guess. And I have erred this direction. If I go too far, then the swivel will hit the reversing lever. And worst case scenario, I have to shorten up the reversing lever, which is not ideal because that could be a pain to use, but I don't want the thing to be fundamentally weak, so we'll go with that. Alright, so the first shoulder is done. I can just put a mic right on here. 5. Yeah, so we're sitting at 558. So 58 more thousandths to go. Now, let's measure this thing again. Actually, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to drive this pin out and measure this thing directly to find out what our target is. So when you have a vise that can open nice and wide, you can play games like this. So our piece is miking out at 4, what is that, 3 less than 5,000. So 497. Alright, so it looks like we need to take off about 86. I'll take off about 50 and mic it again. So if my measurements were right, we should be about 26 away, which is to say 523. However accurate I am. No, we're at about 514. So we're about 17 away. So reset the 0 axis and dial it in another 17. 16 and a half, we'll try that. And at this point we should be able to just test for fit. Alright, so let's check our fit at full depth. That's a perfectly acceptable fit. And I took a measurement on the other one before I took it out of the vise. And we were at 2395 from the flat part of the vise to the stop. So going like this, we were at 2395. This one is at 2440. So I'll trim this a little bit until I get that same 2395 measurement. 2410. 2395. Very nice. So the basic milling should be done. Now we need to put a radius around this rotating end and of course drill. I think what I'm going to choose to do is reassemble the ratchet, kind of slide the thing together a little bit and determine where to put the center hole, and then take it all back apart, put it back in the vise and drill for the center hole. Alright, so what's clear to me is that I can run this handle all the way up here and I'm not going to interfere with that. So I can use this shoulder as a reference point and set my hole center and my radius based on this shoulder and just not striking this existing radius here. So I just went over to the disc sander and tried to put kind of the same profile on it. It's actually not a radius, it's a chunky profile to kind of lock in, what is that, give or take 45-degree increments. The original part has these grooves. I think it's going to be easier for me. I have center punched them. I'm going to put a center drill in my just handheld drill and just drill a little bit of an indentation there to act as a detent. So starter drill, stuck it in the vise, you know, little divot hole that the ball can engage in. So now all we have to do is figure out the center and drill away. I took the original part and I measured the distance from the end to the center of the hole. And then I plotted that same thing on here and I have center punched a mark. What we'll do now is use the wiggler, and that way we know we're drilling in exactly the correct spot. There we go. We're going straight down into the center punch mark, so now we'll hit it with a starter drill and then drill through it with the same size as the original hole, which I just used by trial and error and found that the original hole is a 25/64. Voila. All we got to do now is put it all back together. And there we have it. Just put the ratchet parts back together and drove the pin back through, of course, with the ball and spring in place. The detent is not amazingly strong, but it's strong enough to hold it in position. That's probably about all the original detent would have done. It seems nice and tight. Workmanship's not too bad. I think all in all it's going to be a tool that I'll reach for pretty often. And a tool that I would far rather have than the one that I did have. I look forward to using it and finding out how it does. And hey, thanks for watching.